some of the things, just make it super easy to share. Okay. Just the pure fundamentals of authentication and the buttons that are involved and the process for sharing just needs to be super easy, super tested. Use a Facebook graph. That's just, to me, very simple that still people are missing. You don't have to start from scratch. The Facebook graph is out there. You can tap into people's social networks. You don't have to rebuild all that. And if you get me to share right now using the Facebook graph, that goes out to about 600 people. If it's Twitter, it's a lot more than that. But as long as you make it super easy for me to do it, it'll dramatically increase the odds. Another important thing is have your teams involved in encouraging people. I'm a big participant in Quora. I'm one of the more active users on Quora. And one of the things that they've done is that they have their own teams that are involved in curating the content, incentivizing people to produce better content, generating recognition from within the community. And if you look back, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a story that none of the top Google execs were using Google+. Don't do that. Make sure all of your executives are using your product, talking about it in social networks, talking about it to the extent that you can get into the press. That's all incredibly important.
So make it easy to share, have something that's worth sharing, maybe include some recognition elements.
Rohit, you were starting to say it. You gotta have a great product, and it sounds silly, but take Instagram. I mean, it's a really great product. So what I wouldn't do as an entrepreneur, having been in a lot of small startups, is rely on Facebook or Google Plus to just take off. And that's something I certainly underestimated when I started my company in the daily deal space, is the consumer acquisition piece. We knew we could have salespeople to call merchants and convince them to run local mobile advertising and marketing and daily deal campaigns. And we just kind of thought that we would leverage their merchant audience and some Facebook and a little PPC marketing on Google to acquire consumers. And it's not that easy. And so viral will come with great products, I think, or a little luck.
And the second component is then, how do you make it scalable for the businesses, right? So let's say if I'm trying to create an application, talk about either, deals or any other kind of vertical that I'm targeting, right? I need to acquire users, and I also need to acquire a lot of merchants or businesses to go with that. So how do you attack the second part of the equation?
On the business side?
On the business side.
I think it's definitely the harder part. So, one of the notes in your questions, I think, was about self-serve, and Google is probably the only company I can think of at scale that has merchants self-serving. I think Facebook is probably close behind. We're developing a similar platform where businesses can come in and immediately create an offer within 1/8 of a mile of their location, and so, but again, everything comes back to the return on that time or that investment for that merchant, and so if it's working, they will continue to use it. And those were the early days of Groupon. The business didn't have to do anything. They were very accustomed to having to review print ads and the pain and going back and forth and running an advertisement, and Google AdWords is not very easy to use, and so Groupon came along and did all the work, and then they saw the return on that investment on the rev share, and so I think, again, it's like, you want to go viral, build a great product. If you want to go viral in the merchant community, then it has to work, because it won't last. I think Foursquare is probably feeling the effects of that as well, right? Create an offer, someone becomes a mayor, but did it really drive, did they really close the loop and measure the return on the time they spent to set up that campaign on Foursquare?
I think the biggest thing with local merchants is really understanding how local merchants use technology, and for a lot of them, they don't really use technology. I talked to somebody a few weeks ago who has run 3 Groupons, just did a Google offer, he's done Living Social. He doesn't have a computer. He doesn't use a computer in his business. I see so many startups talk about, we're going to start with iPads. Well, that's too high a threshold. That's a $500 device, and $500 is a lot of money to a small business. So think about what are the absolute minimum steps that are necessary for your business to work with small businesses. I was talking to a company called Grubhub where they let you order food online, and I was talking through their process, and you know, most people would say, well, you have an iPad at the other end and the order pops up on the screen. What they do, which is the right thing to do, is they fax the order to the merchant and it prints out on their fax machine, because that's the technology that the merchants are used to using. So you need to support that. You need to be able to understand what is easy, what is within the existing workflow of merchants, that they can fulfill those orders when they come in. So just really, if you haven't worked in the small business space, if you haven't talked to small businesses outside Silicon Valley, go do that, because the model is very different in terms of technology they use.
I'd actually disagree with that a little bit.
Okay.
I was, so in my experience at Facebook, I've been surprised by how many local businesses are like active on their Facebook page. And you know, to be active on Facebook page, to be active on Twitter, you have to be posting on a very regular basis. I can't reveal the numbers, but it's pretty significant in terms of the number of small businesses that we see that multiple times a week they're posting on their Facebook page. And they're posting be it photos, they're posting deals, they're doing it from the mobile device, they're doing it from the computer. So I actually think the trend is very much so that I assume I would be surprised if there are that many people in this room that don't have a smartphone. I know this is Silicon Valley and TiE, but I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years if pretty much everyone in the United States and Western Europe has a smartphone, and it's as quite capable as a computer was 2, 3, 4 years ago. So I could go back and forth. But so actually, I think that if you're starting a business now in terms of a technology company business and you're focused on small businesses, I actually think that you can be very successful making some assumptions, because so many of them, you might not be able to get all of the small business initially, but I think eventually they'll get enough to be successful.
I actually don't disagree with that all that much. In terms of if you're trying to go broad scale on restaurants in particular, like Grubhub, I think the fax machine is still essential, especially for a real-time thing where they're not checking their Facebook on a minute-by-minute basis. They might be updating it several times a week, whatever. I think you still need to accommodate the older technologies for real-time businesses. But on the whole, I absolutely agree that Twitter and Facebook are the two things that every business, to the extent that they can, should be doing today. I actually did a blog post on this a couple of weeks ago, that if you're not on there, you're missing a lot of opportunity. You're missing the opportunity to connect with your customers. The thing is that for a lot of local transactions, you don't even need deals to know that this restaurant has this dish on special tonight, or not even special, it's just their special of the evening. It might actually be more expensive than the regular menu items, but just the awareness that they have it is tremendously valuable. If it's a holiday, to know that this restaurant is open because they tweeted or put their Facebook status that it's open, that will sway my decision, because I don't have to call 50 places and I don't have to drive around and find the places that are open on the day after Thanksgiving.
I think that's fine, understanding the infrastructure that they have in place. But I was also alluding to, how do you reach? I mean, the market is so fragmented right now for local businesses that if you want to start recruiting, I mean, part of the reason why Groupon has thousands of salespeople is because that's what it takes right now to reach out to these local businesses. Is that likely to change? If I'm trying to target local businesses, how can I do that without hiring 6,000 people? Or is that impossible?
I think you need to be like Facebook or like eBay, a very large company, or you need to hire sales folks, because businesses are sold to, they don't buy, and they're getting 39 phone calls a month selling them local services, from advertising and daily deals to other things, new point of sale systems. And so I think small companies are at a pretty big disadvantage unless you can get plugged into some type of channel that helps you reach those small businesses.
And so I think the way that small business can do it in terms of maybe channel is that get users, right, to be using your application, and so it's user to user, sharing whatever. But I mean, can you imagine? And there are the apps that have this, but imagine kind of a social menu, right? So when you walk into a restaurant, do you want to figure out what you want to order, what you should order? You can certainly ask the staff, you can ask the people you're with, but there are apps that provide today, these are what potentially your friends or what other people have ordered in the past. And can you imagine that the business owner sees you kind of looking at this app, right, in a social menu app, and it has all their items, And we've seen like a lot of these apps get like more traction with kind of business owners because they see their customers using this, and then they're curious. Like, you're actually making your in-store experience at my store better by using this app, so this is something you should get on. So I think that, I certainly agree with the fact that if you actually want to reach businesses directly without, a product that has much usage right now, you need to have scale. That's, be it the technology companies like Facebook, Google's, and eBay's and so on, or you can partner with a telephone company or something, yellow page type companies. But I'd really urge you guys to, if you are relatively small, then really think of kind of the user app perspective, and I think you'll be surprised by how much business adoption you could drive from that.
I think we would like to open the floor for questions. Before I do that, any parting thoughts? Any final thing that you want to share?
So I'll share something. I'll share a story that when I joined Facebook, and again along with the social theme, that I thought was pretty compelling. So back in 2005, so this is 6 years ago, Facebook was thinking about doing photos, and at that time, so 2005 is a long time ago, but really not that long ago. So there was so many online websites for photos. There was very sophisticated software. It could be online software around cropping, rotating the photo, red eye reduction, and so on. And if you're a Facebook product manager, you think, okay, we want to compete with these sites, these products, you would potentially take their feature list and say, okay, we've got to replicate all that, and then what's an additional feature we can build? And the people at the time, they just came up with one idea, and it was just being able to tag people, right? Because they added kind of the social concept, and essentially that was the only feature that they released, that you could upload a photo to Facebook and you could tag someone else. They didn't have any of the complex features. It was basically that current generation of technology that that everyone was just trying to push forward. They took advantage of social and did something totally transformative. And today, 5-6 years later, we have hundreds of millions of photos are uploaded every single day. I think we're bigger than number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and probably beyond combined. And I don't believe we still offer red eye reduction and cropping and so on. It's just that one individual feature. So I think there's so much opportunity with mobile and kind of social. I actually think the mobile device it started off with the telephone. Started off as a very social device. You primarily used it to call people. Then you had text messaging, and then last 5 years, the technology's become so sophisticated and allowed you to do so many different things that most of the stuff that you do tends not to be social, right? You may be taking beautiful videos and beautiful pictures of these high quality, and every next generation the phone that comes out has a higher res and so on. But it's so tough to kind of share that information. You do have GPS, you can do this stuff, and people really aren't checking in and so on. So you can kind of think of how do you get people to check in and kind of make it social, make experiences better for everyone else. I really think there's a massive opportunity around that. That could be around social commerce and so on.
I completely agree that people tagging photos is one of the most viral things ever invented. It's just phenomenal. I did a post on that a few years ago that you looked at the entire feature list of Flickr, and I still use Flickr, and just being able to distribute photos through my social network. If I upload a picture on Facebook, it probably gets 10 comments. Same picture on Flickr gets nothing. So just tremendous what they've done with that simple little feature that just added a lot. But I also think photos is going to be the driver of location going forward. With a lot of cameras now, especially all the smartphone cameras, they automatically embed your location information right into the photo. There's some increasingly GPS geotagging cameras that will do that automatically as well. That provides so much powerful data that can be used to deliver better services to consumers. It can even do things like signal what is important and what's not important. So for example, if I go to Hawaii, which is not a place I'm normally at, and I upload a picture from there, Facebook can tell from the fact that this is a picture that was taken in Hawaii that this is probably more important than the picture I take in Milpitas or Burlingame or wherever else. There's so much powerful data there that I'm looking forward to seeing Facebook use someday. If you look at the Yelp iPad app, they've done a tremendous job of incorporating photos with location into the iPad app. And if you think about how people make decisions in real life for restaurants and things, it's not just about reviews, it's about what's the food look like, what's the atmosphere look like, what's the overall feel of the place, and you can get that so much faster with photos than reading hundreds of reviews.
Do you have any parting thoughts? Or
In the spirit of, I guess, what TiE is about, this has nothing to do with location-based, but if you guys are out there thinking about starting a company, or you already have, congrats, and if you haven't, go do it, because now's a great time to do it, and I've done it a couple times, very small businesses, but there's no better time right now. It's a lot cheaper to start a business, I think, today than it was 5 years ago. There are a lot of great ideas out there, so go tackle them.
questions from audience? Yes.
So I just wanted to start out by reviewing location. Let's say going back to 2000, where we had geolocation, and I could tell by your IP address within a 30 to 50 mile radius where you were. And now there's a lot of other technology there. It's GPS technology, it's Wi-Fi enabled technology, it's triangulation. There's a lot of technology out there where I can actually tell which corner of the block you're on. Or if you're in front of a particular store in a mall, you're in front of Victoria's Secret. And I know your wife wants some things from there. Okay. But to me, location over the years has always been an important technology, because let's say I'm sitting on the border of France to Italy, and I'm in Italy, I really don't want to get served up some French ads in French, So location has always been important, but if we look at it today, it's far more pinpointed than it ever was. It's not just where you got on the highway and where you entered the internet. And then I would also say that location has always been something that has been used in context, because there's been contextual search that is joined with location, right? And there's been matching that's been joined with location. So I guess my question to the panel today is this. Since we're so much more able to pinpoint where my buddy is, if the bar is crowded, where can I find my husband in the shopping mall, because he always gets lost. There's a lot of things I can do. Where can I find a doctor? Can I see a floor plan in a certain hospital? I want to just get into location with you guys, right? Where do you see the technologies merging? Because location to me, and I've been in it for years, in and of itself, is actually nothing. In context, it's something great. So what are your views about the fact that we could actually now today pinpoint which floor on the hospital a doctor we're looking for happens to be resigning? Right at this second. So it's just kind of a general question about context, because to me, location in and of itself is nothing. It has to be used in context.
So is the question, in what context will the location information be really useful?
Well,
Yes.
my question really is that now that we can be precise indoors, outdoors,
And I think that we
get precision, what
right.
can we do with it? Yeah, what do you think is the future? I understand about, finding a restaurant on Yelp or TripAdvisor or whatever. I understand that kind of context, but.
So fair enough. We know precisely where everyone is.
Thank you.
So we know precisely where everyone is at this point. So what?
So it is correct. Let us see 5 years out.
Crystal ball.
Maybe you can go the panel. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe we should, Jake can answer the question. So I don't know if I'll quite answer your question, but I think that, the internet, right? So when I say internet, I'm not talking about like mobile device, but, let's say you go to a website, let's say like CNN.com and so on. Like the predominant experience for most of you is that it's exactly the same as the person next to you, right? It's not in any way, kind of personalized. And what we're seeing is, pretty big change, transformative change, just online, where people now have identity, and you can do things like Facebook login, or maybe Google's has identity and so on. And so then the website, I imagine that 3 to 5 years from now, when you go to any website, it's going to be personalized for who you are. And actually imagine let's say 5 to 7 years from now, because your device knows so much about you, that is your identity, that when you walk into a physical location, be it Disneyland, that your device will say that, okay, these 100 friends of yours were here before, and these are the rides that they went on, and here's like your personalized experience for Disneyland. You walk into Walmart, here's the items that you should potentially be purchasing, because these are what your friends have kind of purchased.
So interesting, Kevin, I just, on both of those points, apparently there was a friend of mine who told me that there's a Disneyland app now that tells you the waiting time for each of the rides.
Yeah.
And it comes up with the personalized itinerary in terms of the order in which you should go for the rides. And Walmart is apparently coming up with an app for Black Friday, so you will know where the Black Friday sale items are located in the store, and you can again.
And so I think that's awesome. But I think what's going to happen is that it'll be transformative, where it'll be each person will have a different view, right? It'll be based on their identity, and your phone, your identity will be coupled with the location to give you something that's only unique to you, right? And we still don't see that with websites. I mean, it's crazy that every website you go to, 99% of them are the same for everyone else. Like, you should be able to take your identity and have it be personalized for you immediately.
I think kind of along the same lines, just taking your previous transactions or data about that business or that location, personalizing the experience with your own information. So if I go into Target, tie that back into my Target purchasing history and say, you haven't bought toothpaste in the last 3 months, you might want to pick it up, save me a trip, and get another sale for Target. That's a very, very simple thing. I know they've got the back-end technologies where they're tracking my purchases based on my credit card number. Use that data to help me out, not just for your massive data warehouse.
I think you have comments.
I was wondering, if you think about Facebook and if you think about Google Plus, what do you think is the market opportunity for both players? And then quick thoughts on LinkedIn. Do you think it's a distant third, the way the things are evolving? Any quick thoughts you may have?
So I think there's a lot of room for multiple kind of social players. I think Google Plus is trying to try to replicate Facebook to some degree, and so then it's unclear whether there can be two companies trying to do the very similar things. But I think there's a lot of room for companies like LinkedIn and other social networks that focus more on an aspect of social networking. So I think we've obviously come a long way, but I think there's a lot more to be done kind of social. So I'm not, as a Facebooker, if you're trying to ask me, like, I'm not worried about Google Plus in terms of they'll be very successful. That means that Facebook can't. I think both can be successful. It's LinkedIn and Facebook.
So we talked a lot about these, but what about other location-based services such as health, security, safety, law enforcement? I mean, there are a number of other applications of essentially a data related to person's presence. So can you talk in general about which other areas do you see as being interesting in coming years?
We're really focused on retail right now, personally, so I haven't thought about location as a bias.
I mean, I've thought about it more from a consumer side of things, and and so, like, I guess I spend a lot of time thinking of it from like word of mouth kind of advertising. So I don't know if I can answer the question, but I don't know if that is what you're looking for. But for businesses where like we're really trying to incentivize users to, as this was earlier, just for instance, you're at a location to kind of like share what you're doing and then tag that location, right? So then that just becomes assets for businesses that they can use to tell that person's friends like what that person's up to. So when you say it, so imagine that you're a local business and you have, let's say, 10,000 people who like your page on Facebook. If you say the average person has 100 to 200 friends, then you take that 10,000 and multiply it by 200. That's 2 million people that you can reach. So if you can get those 10,000 people to do things around your location, so if every single person who came into your store took a photo, right, just of the experience, and took a photo, and photos are incredibly engaging, like that's just a valuable asset for you to be able to like share those 10,000 photos with 2 million people. And so I spend a lot of time thinking from an advertising kind of standpoint. So it's not quite like, deals, but that's where, businesses can take advantage, and that could be companies like Nike and, even like Procter & Gamble, where they have these competitions where, take a picture of your favorite like Nike moment. You'd be wearing like Nike running shoes. And so then they may have, I don't know, fans, they may have 20 million fans, and then if those 20 million fans share it with their friends, and they can share it just organically, but they can also pay for ads, such that the story that Rohit Dhawan was wearing these Nike running shoes and took a picture of himself, that can show up as an ad for every single one of my friends, kind of the right space of Facebook. So I think, location, where content's tagged with location, and then use that for advertising, I think would apply to many of the industries that you're talking about.
There are a couple of other enterprise type examples of location that I just jump out at me based on my recent experiences. I got a call the other day from Citibank that they're going to block my account because somebody was using it in using my card in Indianapolis at Kmart and Walmart and so forth, and that looked suspicious. If there's a way to tie in my location, the fact that my cell phone is in California, they can automatically authorize the charges that are in California and ignore all the card-present transactions in Indianapolis because that's not a valid charge. So right now, I'm going to have to close the account. They're going to take $500 in fraud losses because they approved those transactions. And it's a terrible experience for them, terrible experience for me. That could be better improved by using location in real time. Another recent example, I had a blowout on the 101. I needed to call road service, called American Express. A dispatcher took my information. I had to approximate my location. They called me an hour later and said some guy's on his way. All those steps should have been eliminated. I should have been able to open an Amex app on my phone, say, flat tire, right here, track my location. That goes to dispatch, and then I get a screen back that says, the person who's going to come repair your tire is right here, and you can follow them so you know when they're going to show up.
Hi, yes, my name is Karan, and I've spent about 6 years at Yahoo working on display ads, search ads, integrating our search engine with Bing, mostly advertising back-end huge systems. Recently I decided to quit my job and venture, and let's see how it goes. I had a question, pretty much little bits of questions for everybody, but my main questions for Rohit. So what I'm working on is essentially powering Facebook pages. So it seems very relevant. And one of the biggest issues is I can't create a page from an API. Why doesn't Facebook allow that? And because I think there's a lot of opportunity for smaller 2-3 people teams like myself to go and innovate and do some interesting things there. I understand Facebook wants to own the newsfeed and the profile, and that's their core product. But there are a lot of verticals that can be served very well.
So I think maybe let's talk afterwards, because the answer will be a little esoteric for the rest of the group. But just very quickly, the way that so our goal is not to get as many Facebook pages created as possible. Our goal is to get people, the authentic business owner, like on Facebook, which companies such as yourself can help us, but then get them like very engaged. And so we're looking for them to 2-5 times a week be posting. And so we're concerned that if we just release an API, we'll see a lot of people creating pages and then not getting the engagement. But let's talk afterwards.
By the way, that is already happening. There are thousands of agencies doing nothing but creating Facebook pages for everything else.
Yes, so you could imagine if we had an API, it would be an order of magnitude worse.
Just those outsourced shops in India will probably be coming back here and using APIs.
So, my name is TiE. I have a question for the gentleman work for PayPal, right? So I know that the merchant fraud is one of the big, one of the top issues for the famous group purchasing site like Groupon and Living Social. I know Groupon they holding the funds for 60 days, Living Social 15 days, and Google offer like 3 to 5 days. So how, from the PayPal perspective, I know that you guys are working on some kind of like cutting edge self-service, kind of like a good purchasing capability, which is going to be next generation, they call it 3.0 platform, whatever. So from system perspective, how you guys can systematically prevent these things from happening?
That's a good question. I'm unfortunately not really on the payment side of things. I'm more on demand generation, helping businesses create offers and create that demand to get them to the point of sale. And there's a big risk group who manages that, so I can certainly put you in touch with someone to share some thoughts, but I'm not an expert on that. I know they take it extremely seriously because it slows down our development efforts in a good way, because they're very, very on top of everything we're doing.
I'll take that one, because this is something I've actually spent a lot of time looking into. The companies like Living Social and Groupon have done virtually no risk management, fraud analysis that I can think of. They have all been on a quest to get as much revenue as fast as possible, and they've skipped that step, which is one of the things that really concerns me. You know, I posted, I think, a VentureBeat article a couple weeks ago, a business that essentially put up on their voicemail, and we're sorry we ripped you off, go call Groupon for a refund, because they shut their doors pretty much right after they got the last payment for Groupon, and those Groupons were still valid for another 10 months. So those companies haven't done any risk assessment. I talked to some folks at Yelp. They are doing some risk assessment. They're checking for liens on businesses. They are doing credit checks. Living Social is a little bit better in that they actually have feet on the street, so they go out and visit the businesses. So if it's a pure scam, they're not going to, hopefully not run the deal for that business. But the risk management is not where it should be.
Yeah, just to clarify, on the PayPal side, I mean, we're a payments business, and so we have, we are not relaunching PayPal as a daily deals business, and so I agree those two fraud cases are very different. On the Groupon Living Social side, it's not managed, although I will say, having run a business very small in that space, that there's ways to control it, but they're heavily dependent on the merchant. The rates were very low, but again, Groupon grew very fast, and so it became a big problem for them.
I have a question regarding the Shopkick. So I did not see the mention of Shopkick in any of your promising startups. I do see that there is a lot of value in big retailers, especially knowing about who their customers are even before they enter. What would be your opinion on what is the future of Shopkick or Shopkick kind of businesses who know who give like a incentive for people to walk into a shop? And I've typically seen myself as a personal user that every time I go to just collect some kicks, I do end up spending some money. So what would be your thought on that?
So unfortunately, I've never used Shopkick. I've read about them to some degree, but I'm very, very bullish in the entire space. And I think Groupon, I mean, if you think about it, Groupon was just incredible at getting people in the door, right? And it was measurable. So businesses knew that, you know, if I ran a Groupon, I can get the cash in advance, but these people who would never come into my business otherwise, they're coming in, and I can, beyond just perceive it, I can actually, you know, see the actual numbers of number of people, like on a balance sheet, like see the number of people who came in. So I think that the applications that are going to do very well are the ones that actually can drive people into, you know, the store and kind of do it, as you know, Eric was talking about, like, you know, for businesses at scale. You know, Groupon, I don't know the specific numbers, but I think we work with like 60,000, 100,000 businesses, or 80,000 businesses, which is a big number, but, you know, imagine with like 9,000, whatever the sales team that they have. So I'm very, you know, bullish on, you know, those type of apps that get people into the store. And then, you know, I think the measurement's important, but, you know, one thing that, you know, from a Facebook perspective, like, when I think of, do we need to tell a business that, okay, you ran this particular promotion and, you know, 17 people like walked into your store, or is it good enough for them to just feel that, okay, like, you know, every day someone's walking in the store and they're kind of pulling up this app, and it happens to be the Shopkick thing, and, you know, I've spent some money on Shopkick, and it's actually kind of working for me, so the kind of perception. And I think, in generally, like for small businesses and, you know, location-based services typically are targeted towards most small businesses. If you can extract your $50, $100, $200 a month, that's, you know, pretty good. And they just need to feel that people are walking in the store because of your app.
I think this also goes back to the concept that we opened with, that it's hard to get people to do specific things like Shopkick. I'm, you know, somebody who's worked in location for 10 plus years, follow the space very closely. I've never used Shopkick, and probably won't use Shopkick. Doesn't seem like something I'd get a ton of value out of. But, you know, getting people to do these types of things is really hard.
Yeah, I haven't used it either. but I'm very, very bullish about sort of the in-store engagement piece of that whole space. And we bought Red Laser and Milo, and that's, you know, trying to, pieces of that are replicated there, so. I like the space, I just haven't used it.
That's something that Best Buy has done recently, is that they have QR codes next to all their products, so that if the blue shirt isn't around, which is often the case, you can just scan the QR code and you'll get product information. And I've actually seen some manufacturers put QR codes right on the boxes of their product because they don't trust the retailers to provide the right information. So you can scan the QR code on the box of the DVD player and go to the manufacturer's site.
I guess that's your answer. I mean, there are 4 people up here in Silicon Valley. I've used it a little bit. I have Shopkick application. I've used it a few times, but I'm not a frequent user either. So hopefully that at least gives you some indication.
We're also a very bad demographic. I mean, if you actually use us as kind of a typical user base, I mean, A, we're all men, right? Second, like, you know, Silicon Valley. Whereas, you know, the typical person is very interested in like coupons and deals and kind of like, you know, and discounts. That's why I think Groupon's been very successful. So actually, that's why I'm super bullish in that space. So I just think that someone's gonna like just nail it, where they, you know, people like, you know, when they walk into the store, they're gonna like, oh, I have to use this app because I'm gonna get a little bit of a discount, and then maybe tell my friends about it, and they'll come into the store as well.
Jiten? Sorry.
Can you elaborate on it a little bit? Why Facebook challenging the data deal?
Yeah, so I can't probably tell you the exact number of employees we have, but you know, it's in the like single digits, low single digits, like in the thousands, right? And you know, we started running the deals business, and I think we had this, you know, thought that, you know, potentially Facebook might be able to do it like in a better way than Groupon's done it, and we'll just get this massive like scale, and we'd only need to hire, you know, 1,000 people, right? It just became pretty clear to us that Groupon is an operational machine, right? They've, you know, done, and you may disagree, but I think they've just done an excellent job with just like execution. Like anything from, they've hired, you know, tons of comedians who, you know, just like some writers, and just everyone from like, you know, contacting the businesses, getting the businesses to agree to this, generating like, you know, user kind of like, you know, buzz and just kind of awareness. And it's just a big operation, and for us to be able to be as good or better than Groupon, we would just need a lot of people, and it's a low margin business. And as I was saying earlier, I think it just requires a lot of operational excellence, which we were willing to like bet our company on that we would have that capability.
Just to kind of provide a little bit more color on that, they're very, very different businesses. I did an analysis of the Groupon employee headcount. 5% of their 10,000 plus employees are in technology, about 500 people, and most of them are out here in Palo Alto. 80% of their staffing, including editorial, sales, customer support, merchant services, and city planning, that is going to scale linearly with their growth. It's a very, very different business, and most companies I know of in Silicon Valley don't want to do that.
So this question is for Arik. So one of the problems with location-based services is that, you know, a service has to provide a consistent enough experience at enough number of places that people get into the habit of using it. And since it's location-based and there's so many locations, it's really hard to get that consistent experience across a lot of locations to begin with. And if you don't get it, it's kind of get into the chicken and egg problem. How did Ware address that problem, and how did you guys think about building something which is engaging right from the beginning?
Sure. So we still fight that problem. I mean, Ware is still a fairly small company in the grand scheme of things. We have 3 or 4 million people who use our app, and it's about local discovery, and we have a lot of the challenges that Google and Facebook have at times with data quality and reviews on places. And I'll tell you, I think one way that Ware did it is they established an amazing relationship with AT&T early on, and so they have an app. We have an app that's preloaded on 80% of AT&T smartphones. And so that was our answer to the consumer equation. And on the merchant side, we took a channel approach. So instead of hiring thousands of people, we are leveraging other sales teams, like Yellow Pages sales teams who have thousands of people already selling to small businesses who might be buying SEO packages or local advertising packages. And hey, do you want to spend $80 a month on mobile advertising? So we had a little luck on the consumer side with a BD effort that the team put together on the AT&T front and a channel approach on the merchant side. But it was not easy. It still isn't.
We'll take one last question.
With the NFC technologies that are now coming up, could you comment a little bit about how you see that evolution happening, and then how the NFC technology might get incorporated into location-based services going forward?
Rocky's been waiting for this question.
I am not a big believer in NFC as it's currently being promoted for payments. I just haven't seen enough incremental value over swiping a card or any of the other number of ways to do transactions. I think over time it will happen just because the terminal manufacturers are just essentially going to throw it into the technologies, and over the next 5 to 10 years as the terminal swap out happens, it will get adopted. I don't see it being the huge changer of commerce technologies that some companies are billing it as. It's launched on a small network, on one phone, on one payment network. I don't see it taking off in the next 3 years.
I agree. I mean, it's a massive chicken and egg problem there, and slightly biased being from PayPal, but we're going into that space without having to switch out a lot of hardware at these merchants, and so that's going to be a big transition that's going to really affect that whole chicken and egg problem that will go on in that space.
I think Sanjay, you have a question. Why don't we take Sanjay's question also?
Okay, I want to do one comment and one question. I think my comment is that at TiE we generally measure what we're doing as wealth creation, and I think a lot of people get welcomed for helping to create a lot of wealth. I think you might be the first person here who may have successfully taken 10 billion out of a company's valuation in the right way, because you saved someone else's 10 billion. So I think you're quite unique. My question is, we talk about location-based services, and one of the things that I think is interesting is understanding a consumer's shopping intent at location, and presumably that allow the merchants to do very targeted offers and say, okay, attract the consumer to come into the door. My question really is, are the merchants ready to be able to take advantage? Assuming I could tell them today, here's someone looking to buy something, can the merchants even take advantage of that?
Okay, well, to the first question, I would say my lifetime goal, this is something I actually posted on my Facebook, is to be a net value creator. So I need to make up for $10 billion of value somehow over the rest of my life. In terms of are merchants ready, I think that really depends on who the merchant is. There's just so much variability. I would guess that a lot of small businesses are not ready. Some of the higher end businesses, I think, would have a tremendous number of opportunities, especially businesses with perishable inventory. If you think about things like airlines, to be able to sell last minute inventory in a way that still preserves their pricing power, if you could send them data on somebody who's looking for something, that potentially is something that could be pretty significant. Hotels would be another category. Priceline just came up with a new last-minute app where they will sell flash sale inventory for tonight only based on your location. So certain categories, I think, absolutely will do it. Other categories will take a few years.
All right, with that, we will close the session. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists.